Welcome back to She Can, where women lead by example by telling their stories of how they got to where they are today, to sharing all the insights and experience, because it's easier to be what you can see. And I'm really excited to talk to Emily Kratter today. Emily, welcome to She Can.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're an actress and producer, and you're the co-producer of the Circle This podcast with Andrea
Yes,
Bendewald. And this is how we met with
yes.
Dre in a circle, and you will explain more to us later. You have been best known for the films Life After You, Half Brother, and A Stage of Twilight, and you performed and developed a lot of new work with countless companies and in New York and around the US, such as the New Group, the Williamstown Theater Festival, the Playwrights Horizons, the Contemporary American Theater Festival, the Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park, and the Portland Stage, and many more. Emily, tell us a bit more about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Oh my goodness. Well, the acting bug bit me really early. I was lucky. I grew up on Long Island, so we were
Mm.
close to New York City, and my parents exposed me to theater, and I think the first thing I saw was Peter Pan, and Peter took off flying, and it was totally magic to me, and I was hooked. So I went to NYU to study acting, and theater really has been my home, my heart, my synagogue and church. Um, and as I started working professionally, I was getting cast in a lot of new plays and working in the development of new plays, which
Mm.
a lot of people don't realize. But the road from a script to the stage is a very, very long one, full of workshops and revisions and labs and industry backers auditions to get the investments, and it's a long road. So often actors are hired along the way to
Mm.
help workshop and develop the piece. And so I had done a lot of that kind of work. And throughout, when the stars align and you get to be a part of a production and development that then makes its way to an actual production on the stage, which has happened for me a few times, it's the dream. And then there are the scripts that you pour your heart and time and energy and years into, and it ends up on a shelf somewhere in a drawer. It never sees the light of day. And I grew so frustrated by the process that it really sparked my interest in producing and just being a part of the the engine that gets these stories out into the world. And it was really during the pandemic when theater shut down that I started taking classes and learning as much as I could about the business behind the table, so to speak, and how I could yeah, be a part of bringing these stories that I believe in so much to life.
So I think we need to talk a little bit about this acting career and also more about this transition. It seems like you're more interested in being a producer these days and bringing these stories to life. Tell us about that a little bit, that journey.
Sure. I guess I wouldn't say it's that I'm more interested. I think of it as an expansion as
Mm.
opposed to a transition,
Mm.
because truly acting and that is where I feel most at home. But I've grown terribly impatient, and I have this incredible community of artists and friends and collaborators in New York, and I have this burning desire to bring everybody I know and I'm inspired by together and see what we can make together. So it's an expansion. It's just trying to take a little bit of the power back
Mm.
and yeah, be a part of the machine that gets these stories out there. It's I've never been the kind of actor that has to be the, number one on the call sheet, but it's the storytelling for me. And there's so many different ways to share stories now. So I'm just interested in exploring and expanding how I can contribute more in more ways than just acting to sharing these stories that have changed me so much.
Yeah. Emily, I love when I went on your website, you have a whole community page where you
Yeah.
list all the people and the companies that shaped your journey and that influenced your journey positively, which I love. I wish every person in the world would do that
Ah,
because you're giving people access to your Rolodex, sort of, but
yes.
you also honor the people that are a piece of your journey, which I absolutely love. And so tell us a little bit more about this community that you've built and that you keep on building and you add
Yes.
things to it. It's the acting community, it's the theater world, it's the film world, it's the producing world, now it's the podcast world.
Yes. Thank you so much for noticing that because I oh I mean really like any quote unquote success that I've had or even positive experience that I've had is in large part due to countless people
Yeah,
that put a good word in for me or yeah passed my resume along or just made a whispered to somebody behind the table that perhaps I'm somebody to consider for this role. And it takes a village. It
yeah,
just takes a village.
yeah.
And I I want to be transparent about that, and I want to pay it forward. And it's really the only way I know how to live. It's also much more fulfilling and enjoyable way to live to collaborate and share um, resources and ideas. And I don't know how else to navigate this life other than to help one another. And I'm committed to doing so fervently, especially for women, for everybody. But I have been, I have seen, I'm drawn to personally, I'm drawn to the stories of women. I think in large part because there are so few of them there were so few that I saw and so few roles written by women for women. So I want to champion that. And yeah, my community is the only reason I'm still able to do this every day. So I want to be transparent about it and grow it and just sort of break down this system of competition and model how it can be done a different way.
Emily, I'm so happy that you're leading with this in a
Hmm.
world that's often still seen as superficial, and people and women, especially, are pitted against each other in a sort of, crazy whirl of, who's the best and who's the most beautiful and who's the most
Ugh,
talented and, who knows more people and all of the things that I think is still very much in that industry that you're a part of, and you're making it human and you're bringing it back
mm.
down to the beautiful connections and the community, which is what it's all about in the end.
Thank you
Emily,
so
I'm
much.
I'm wondering, what are your main learnings if you look back? What are
Mm.
the takeaways that you can share with us? Because it's a very vulnerable journey, I always think, to be in that industry, and you have to put yourself out there often vulnerably and authentically, and you have to push yourselves to places that you never thought you're gonna have to go or want to go. And so tell us, share a little bit with us for all the young girls that are sitting in their drama classes at school and think maybe this is for me.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I remember I'll share this story. When I was at NYU, I remember welcome week. I was 17 years old, just about to start as a freshman. And we were in this large auditorium, and somebody on the board, told us to look around. And more or less, they said, this is your competition.
Oh, good Lord. Mm,
That's how we were starting out.
mm,
And I just in my heart of hearts, in my core, I said no. I'm not. I can't. It's just so antagonistic to the way I want to be and live. And what about if this is my ensemble? Like, what about if
mm,
these are my future castmates and collaborators? And what if this is my creative family? Not my competition. I mean, I just something about that just completely, I knew I wouldn't last if that was the world. So I guess what my main takeaway is that that's not true, and it doesn't have to be true. And I would say find your tribe, as cliche as that sounds, but create community and help one another and love one another and celebrate one another. When somebody in your community has a win, cherish it like it's a win for all of you, because it is. You know, when one person rises and you've established this sort of familial ensemble, everybody rises. So yeah, I would reframe that whole idea of scarcity, that scarcity mindset, like the whole competition thing just has to go out the window. It really doesn't have to be that way. So that's the biggest thing. And then my teacher who changed my life, my coach, acting coach, and she's so beyond that now, more like a, oh my gosh, I don't know, a fairy godmother. But Lee Kilton Smith, during the pandemic, when theater went dark and all the jobs and contracts went away, I really was out at sea, because so much of my like self-worth and my identity is tied into the work I do. It's more than just work. It's like feels like my purpose. And she really opened up my mind, cracked open my heart to see that I'm not just an actor or a creator at work, but my whole life is my canvas.
mm,
And the way I choose to live is as an artist, my curiosity, my humanity, the way I walk and see the world. So I would just, I guess, I'm stealing this from her, and I will give her all the credit, but to not just see your work as your art, but your whole life as your art.
which is beautiful, Emily. Thank you for
Yeah.
saying that, and thank you for leading with that, and for improving the sisterhood, which is really
Mm.
something that every single one of us has to do. I always feel we women have to pay a little rent on this earth, and that is to give back for the greater good and to improve the sisterhood, because that would definitely make the world a better place.
Yes, and
Yeah. Yes, and I love that you said that. This leads us perfectly into the
oh,
next point,
great.
which is that you are now co hosting and co producing a podcast called Circle This with Andrea Bendewald, who is a
Yes,
circle facilitator and, spiritual coach in
the one and
LA. She's
only.
an actress and she is lovely. And in during the pandemic, or just before the pandemic, I found her online. I think I saw her online somewhere and I thought,
Yeah.
oh, this sounds interesting, let me
Yes,
sign up. And I met so many incredible women in the circle, and
yes,
I think that actually in her circle, that's where she can was sort of, I had the idea, I had sort of started, I didn't know where the journey was going. And I think that along the lines of the circling over the course of the pandemic, which was 2 or 3 years,
right.
this idea became what it is today. And
Wow, I
I
had no
think,
idea.
yeah, I think it's sitting in community with all of you, that, from prompt to prompt, from week to week, I just sort of grounded and then understood where this journey with She Can is going. And
Wow.
so tell us a little bit more about your work with Dre. Her nickname is Dre. Circle This podcast. Tell us more about it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. First of all, that's crazy. I didn't realize that it sort of grew from circles, although it doesn't surprise me, but that gives me chills. Um, okay, my journey with Dre is a wild and crazy one. I heard Dre on a podcast in the middle of the pandemic when I was so lost and walking around Manhattan aimlessly in, apocalyptic Manhattan, and I was actually looking for a meditation podcast. I heard Dre, she was talking about um, circling as a sort of interactive meditation with women through storytelling. And that's really what I live for is women's stories. So I just followed that curiosity, started circling. It totally changed my life. And I guess because of my background, the way I walk through the world, I see things as plays or short films or screenplays. I see it all play out. And in my experience with circling, I thought there was a play in there. I still think there is, but um, after 2 years of circling with her, I sort of got up the courage to say, I have this idea, and I don't know how I convinced her, but she was into it, and we started writing together. And in sharing stories that I thought were informing this play, I had the realization that there's a podcast here. I've always loved podcasts. I heard her on a podcast, and there was just it's a beautiful medium because it's very accessible,
Yeah.
right? Theater is always, where my heart is, but you got to sell tickets and you got to get a space and it's limited to who's in the location, right? A podcast you can create, you can release it into the world and it's free for anybody. And that really excited me. And I just knew that the stories she was sharing with me and the people that she was sharing with me was elevating my life tremendously, like really shifting me. And I have this thing where like when that happens, I want to share it with everybody. I really I have this deep urge to share. So circle this. Yeah, we've started this podcast and it has been, oh my God, the craziest adventure because we're doing it independently and I have never done anything like this before. So we are figuring it out day by day, but I am loving it and learning so much, behind the scenes and through the conversations that I get to witness. And um, this is kind of an example of like creating what I was seeking because I'm like desperate for for the wisdom of women who are older than me and younger, but just the wisdom of these stories. So, um, yeah, that's what this is all about. And you know what it also is, Stephanie? I read this manifesto that the Surgeon General put out in 2023, and he declared that loneliness is an epidemic that needs to be combated as intensely and seriously as obesity and smoking. That it is really killing us
Yeah.
at that high of a rate. And that killed me. That really broke me to think that loneliness could be so, um,
Detrimental to our health.
yes, yes, terminal,
Yeah.
and I don't think it has to be that way. And so this podcast, our hope is that it is um, stories, tools, and resources and inspiration for people to cultivate deeper connection in their lives to themselves, to other people, and to something greater.
Yeah. You have beautiful conversations,
Oh, thank
Emily. You
you.
have beautiful conversations. You interview one incredible woman after another who is
You're
sharing
next. You're
her
coming
insights.
up.
Yes, I'm so excited.
So
And these
excited to have you.
insights and experience, just as we do with She Can, you are then leading with your story, and your
Mm.
story represents certain things, and you have certain insights and experiences that will guide and support others. And it's sort of the antithesis to the small talk, right? It's
Yes.
it's really deep, beautiful conversations. And really, in every single conversation that you release, there is such personal but universal truth and learning and healing and
Mm.
all of it. So I'm in awe of what you have already achieved, and I'm sure there'll
Thank you.
be many more things to come and many more incredible conversations. And I know how hard it is, Emily, because I'm doing it, right? And
Yes,
so I'm
yes.
always jealous that you have each other, because actually that
Oh,
is making the journey much easier. And
yes.
I love your conversations in the end. They're almost my favorite part, because while the conversations are, beautiful, in every conversation you learn something new, and you meet yourself in a different way each time, because you see yourself through the lens of the conversation. I love when you sum it up in the end and you give your own opinions and learnings of those conversations. And I think it's a beautiful way of doing it, and I can
Oh,
see how much fun you're having, and I can see how I don't know, which episode are you on now?
oh my goodness. We are releasing episode, I believe it's number 27 tomorrow, which is with Jane Sibbett.
Yes,
Yeah.
incredible. And I think most podcasts don't get across the 10 episode line, I think. So
I get it.
yeah.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Emily, so give us a little bit more insight as to what success means for you now. You've been,
Oh,
doing what you're doing for a while. You've gone through the pandemic where your whole industry was at a standstill.
yeah.
You're constantly birthing yourself and finding new ways of expressing your creativity and your purpose within the industry that you work in. What does success mean to you now, and what does it look like?
Oh my goodness. That is the question, I think, because and I'm struggling with that question now. I'm really, really, really trying to redefine it for myself because, like I said, for a long time, my self-worth was really tied up into what I was working on in the moment and you know how much acclaim it was getting or I don't know, all of those metrics
Yeah.
that are short-lived and you have limited control over, and yet I think society at large, that's how they evaluate success. So I'm really working on creating my own definition. um, so for me, what I'm working on is how much am I growing, learning, how much joy am I experiencing in the process of creating, as opposed to focusing entirely on the result, on numbers, on money, on all of those things, which are important to sustain it. But I'm really, really separating that and trying to focus on, yeah, the joy, the learning, the growth in the process, in the doing, and how it is feeding and nourishing me in those ways. And I think I'm also measuring success in in the company I keep. I look around at my friends. It's so silly, but I have a lot of friends that just worked on this show called The Jonathan Larson Project, who wrote Rent. And so I always go back to that very famous song that everybody knows, Seasons of Love, which says to measure your life in love. And when I return to that, and when I look at my life and I measure my life in the love that I'm surrounded by, the people in my life, this city, New York City, which really, it was always a dream of mine to live here. Um, I feel very wealthy when I think of my life like that. But it's a practice in remembering to evaluate myself that way, because there are days that are really hard. But
Yeah,
that's what I hope.
yeah,
Yeah.
like for all of us. Emily, what do you feel really matters to you going forward, and how do you want to matter?
Mm. Oof. Wow. How do I want to matter? I want. I want to I want to elevate any room that I'm in. I want to be somebody who really sees and hears and makes people feel seen and heard and I really want to be a source of possibility and bring stories into the world that represent all of that demonstrate and exemplify our shared humanity. Um, because for me, theater specifically, because it's such a collective experience, but I'm such a seeker and I have so many questions and I wonder and I when I go to the theater and I see a story reflected back at me, I feel like I understand a little bit more what we're all doing here. It grounds me and I feel that connectedness and that unity and I desperately want to be a part of creating those experiences for everyone.
Beautiful. I love that, Emily. And you said that so beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Emily, what are you most proud of to date?
Ah, oh my goodness. What am I most proud of? I mean, I could go through the roles and projects that I'm proud of. I mean, I'm certainly proud of this podcast because it really was um, and a good example of starting before you're ready and figuring it out as you go. And certainly super proud of that. But I think I'm mostly proud of my commitment to optimism and my commitment to curiosity and learning and yeah, the way I connect and show up and um, love, I guess. I guess that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, which I love, and it's a beautiful way of leading with that. Emily,
Thank
tell
you.
us a bit about your plans and your goals, your dreams.
Ah,
How do you sort of envisage the next years?
wow. Well, I do want to grow this podcast. It's I really truly believe in it and I see a lot of collaborations and possibilities and we're taking our time with it, which is great, but I definitely want to grow that and I have a handful of scripts that I really believe in as well, so we're trying to find the right timing and theaters and collaborators. That I have this like fantasy because the logistics of theater right now in New York City are so challenging, just in terms of investment and cost and space and all of these things. And I have this crazy fantasy of one day owning a theater and being able to bring all my friends and my community together and really kind of decommercialize it all in some way. If we could strip it down and make it more affordable and make it more accessible for people. And I don't know how, the universe is going to have to show me how, but that's a big fantasy that I have. But one of my dear friends, Joe Iconis, he has this lyric in a song and it goes, I just want to do what I love with the people I love. And I think that's my dream. I want to do what I love with the people I love and, you know, make an impact with what we're doing.
Along the way. I love
Mhm.
that you want to find a physical home for, your community.
Yes.
That's such a beautiful dream to have.
Yes. We
Emily,
lost so many of them during the
yeah,
pandemic. It really,
yeah.
real estate in New York. So yeah, that's a
Mm.
dream I have for sure.
I mean, I think it bears to sort of question what life is like now, right now, in the world we live in right now, being in the performing arts in a city like New York with the politics that's sort of underpinning everything we do, because it's not just a domestic US thing, it's really cuts across the world on just about anything. And we
Yeah.
see that happening also in the UK and in Europe. And so I'm wondering, how does that, how what are those challenges you face and how can one reframe them? Because it's really bigger than us.
It is. I mean, the challenge is, I guess it depends how far you zoom out or in. You know, zooming out, there's such little funding for the arts, and there's just such little support. I remember during the pandemic, you remember the term essential workers, right?
Yes.
And somebody made a list of, you know, the most essential to the least essential. And actors and entertainers were the least essential according to this list, right? And I was like, oh, wow, that's rough, you know, to see that. And of course, I understand in this crisis how it was being categorized, but I just decided that that's not true. You know, it's really, really not true. I think actually art will save us and really bring us together.
I agree.
Um, but yeah, the challenges for sure are funding because artists also have to get paid. They have to get paid and they have to live and um, you know, I have all these ideas of connecting investors and artists. There's so many middlemen in between, and I think there's a lot of people that want to support and maybe just don't have the connection or access. So um, I'd love to figure out a way to, you know, circle with patrons and investors and the artists themselves. Um, and then as far as if that's zooming out, if we zoom in, what are the challenges? You know, as an artist, it's the unconventional lifestyle and it's the deep, deep uncertainty and going from project to project and these leaps of faith and um, you know, lack of security and I don't know that's a daily battle of just having some crazy faith in yourself and I'll tie it back to community. That's why I think for me my community is everything because we kind of share these challenges and so if I didn't have them to lean on in the times when I lose faith in myself, I don't think I could, you know, continue on. But I'm buoyed by the togetherness that I feel that we're doing this together.
Yeah, which
Does that
is,
answer your question?
yes, and it's palpable, in everything you
Okay.
say.
Mm.
I'm so grateful for, having seeing yet another woman who leads with almost delusional optimism, right? Because I
Ah,
think that's what we need these days. It seems
oh my God.
almost delusional, but actually this is exactly, we have to go even bigger in terms of, you know, dream and co-creating this reality that we want to live in, because it's a
Yes.
needle, it's a compass, and it leads you into the right direction.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know it does feel delusional often, but I don't know what the alternative is. You know what I do know, the alternative is too hopeless for me to
Contemplate.
con
Yeah.
yeah, to contend with. So I
Yeah,
guess I
i
choose the
feel i feel
delusion.
exactly the same way. Emily, what takeaways would you like our listeners to to take away when they hear your story?
Oh my goodness. What takeaways? Um, I'll I'm probably a little bit of a broken record right now, but just the importance and the value of community.
Mm.
And if you it's out there, like everybody is seeking it. So I think if you can't find it, create it. Start with just you and one other person, whatever that looks like, whatever you want to build. I'm trying to normalize um, the ask, so to speak, whether that's and in a respectful and thoughtful way, but we can't do this alone. Nobody can
No.
do anything. We cannot do it
Yeah.
alone. So just normalizing asking for help, which I have to learn over and over again, but or normalize asking for support or just asking a question. Um, I hope that people can take away that the courage to make those requests, because when I have, everything has expanded
Yeah.
in my world. It was never as hard as it might have felt.
Mm,
Oh, and I'll also say this: when you find somebody that you are inspired by, tell them, tell them.
mm,
I'm practicing now, and I'll give total credit to one of my best friends, Sammy, who said, "Never keep a kind thought to yourself."
mm.
And that's a big one, because I would meet incredible people and want to share, what what I took away, or what something meant to me, but all those voices in my head would be like, oh, they don't care. Everyone tells them that. Like, they don't need to, just leave them alone. Um, but I'm realizing that, everybody loves to hear something authentic and impactful, and why not spread some kindness, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I'll say never keep a kind thought to yourself.
Emily, this is the most beautiful finish to honor
Oh,
you and to thank you for how you are leading by example. There was
thank
so much beauty in this conversation, how you're looking for the shared humanity, how you're championing community, how you build yours, what it's brought you, that it takes a village for each of us to walk this life journey, which seems so personal, but actually is so collective. I
Yes.
love how you champion women's stories. I love that you didn't have them growing up and you want to change that and you want to impact that. I love that you want to find a physical home for your community. I love your curiosity, and I just love that you are ballsy and curious and paying your rent on this earth, and doing things for the greater good, and therefore changing the status quo, which needs
Wow.
changing.
Oh my gosh, Stephanie, thank you so much. And I'm so inspired by you and what you're doing. I was watching, so many videos, and yeah, if anybody is ever feeling a little lost or needs some inspiration, they can just go to your page. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily.